if you diligently do the little meditations on the chakras that we'll teach as each series goes along. So if nothing else, try to listen to the Ajna Chakra meditation from the first talk and do that one, because the sequence is quite important, that you have develop a nice awareness of your Ajna Chakra before you move to your Muladhara Chakra. Hi. I haven't seen you for a long time.
I know, really.
Wow.
How are you? Sorry I missed you last time.
Fine, thank you. So, find a very straight spine. Find a very straight spine. And settle yourself on your two sitting bones so that they prop you into an erect position. And lengthen yourself along your spine so that you can feel it an equal grounding through the sits bones and also through the crown up into the sky. Sort of an equal push-pull relationship that will exist. And then the length of your spine will stretch straight along that line. And then your eyes gently closed, your hands just softly placed on your thighs. Your lips are very relaxed. In fact, you are very, very relaxed. Be very loose. Your jaw is very soft. Your muscles feel like they come away from your bones a little bit, especially in your face, your shoulders. Very settled and very, very relaxed, very soft. And then find an awareness of your anus, your anal muscles, your anal sphincter muscles, and just contract and relax them several times. Very gently though, very gently. This is a mudra which we call Ashwini mudra. So just to have a clear sense of that mudra, do this gentle little engaging of the anal sphincters a few more times. And then let them go. Let them go. Completely release. Then now, have an awareness of your urethral muscles, your urethra, the passage through which we urinate, and imagine that you're thinking about stopping the flow of your urine, but very gently, just softly and gently, and just a few times, just enough times so that you have an awareness of how different they are, both in location and in sensation from the Ashwini mudra, from the anal sphincters. This is called Vajrali mudra in men and Sahajali mudra in women. The urethra. It's also a sphincter, the urethral sphincter muscles. The front lower wind. And then release them completely. And once again, lengthen along your spine. Lengthen along your spine. Relax. Let go. Relax. Now, have an aware of that point directly in the middle between those two, between the Ashwini Mudra and the Vajroli or Sahajali Mudra. So, in girls, it's the vaginal muscles, the vaginal engagement muscles, and in men, it's directly between the anus and the testicles. And they tell me that this is what men are taught to retract in martial arts classes. So they're doing a very powerful Mula Bandha, engaging of the Muladhara chakra. When they do that, you can imagine walking into an icy cold lake. And for the ladies, this is just a gentle engaging of the vaginal muscles. And when you gently engage the vaginal muscles, you are moving in towards isolating the Muladhara chakra. The Muladhara chakra. So very gently, very softly engage this chakra a few times. And as you do, start to slow it down a little bit so that you engage and release. And engage and release. Engage and release. And then imagine now that that point, the central point of that chakra, is actually breathing. And as you engage, it's inhaling. The actual chakra is inhaling into itself. And as you exhale, the chakra itself is exhaling. Release. Engage. Inhale. Exhale. Release. Engage. Inhale. Exhale. Release. So this is the action of Mula Bandha. And this will help you to learn to develop an awareness of the Muladhara chakra so that you can isolate the chakra itself. And if you practice diligently, then you don't have to do anything. Just to think about the chakra will elicit a sensation, elicit a throb, or an awareness of the chakra over time. So relax now. Let go completely and totally relax your body. Totally relax your body. Okay, so please practice. Remember, go back and watch YouTube and do the ajna first. And then if you've never done the ajna, do that for a few weeks. And then start to practice the Muladhara. And then you'll have lots of time to practice the Muladhara, because I don't know when we're coming back. So you can practice for a while.
Hi, thank you for coming. We thought that we would just do like a little intro or like a little recap as to why you would want to practice with a partner, or why, what is the whole point of this practice, and really what is the whole point of all of the practices that we're doing, you know, whether it's asana practice or meditation practice or working with a spiritual partner or meditation or whatever it is, pranayama, all these different things. Like, what is the point, and what are we trying to do, and what's our end goal, right? Because I think that, well, I personally sometimes lose sight of that, and you just sort of get caught up in this thing, and I think it's refreshing and healthy to remind ourselves about, you know, what it is and why we're doing these different practices and what the goal is. So we just thought that we would touch on that briefly, and we're starting to do that as we talk a little bit more and more, and I think it's useful to try to conceptualize it, or to package it, and so that we understand what it is that we're really doing. So, in relationship to partner practice, which is what this talk is about, I think that we said in the first talk, what we're really talking about is energy between you know, people, and you can call it male and female energy, you can call it yin and yang, you can call it positive and negative, or black and white, or whatever you like. But basically we're talking about two different kinds of energies that run within our own bodies, and also when we work with a spiritual partner, that we have that reciprocal energy, or the opposite of the predominant energy that we don't have. So, you know, males tend to be attracted to females, although they can also be attracted to males as well, and that's an energy relationship as well. It's not bound by gender, shall we say. So, why are we trying to do that? What are we doing with this? This working with this energy, working with another person. We're trying to balance ourselves, and we're trying to become whole. Is basically what we're doing. Trying to get a perfect balance of these two side channels that we talk a lot about. You guys who haven't, I don't know if everyone here has heard about them, but they sort of approximate, they end at the nostrils and they cross over, and they cross over as they come down through what would be the medial nerve or the central channel, and then they end down where Yvonne was doing the Muladhara meditation, something like that. And those two channels are, wherever they cross, they create a chakra, okay? And those are the points in the body, the crucial points that we're trying to loosen up. We're trying to get these channels really healthy first and straightened up, and then we're trying to completely dissolve them. And then so all of these different methods that we talk about, you know, all the yoga asana that you ever do, really that's the goal, is to dissolve what they call these two side channels into the Sushumna Nadi, or the central channel, which approximates the spinal nerve. All of your meditations are to that goal, all of your pranayama, all of the work with your partner, all of your work anywhere in the world really starts to become that is what you're trying to achieve, is this perfect balance and harmony, and then basically what we would say is a dissolution of these side channels. And so working with a partner is a very powerful way to do that, because of the fact that you're working with the opposite energy, the one that you don't have so much of. So, I appear in male form and I don't have so much female energy, although I do have some. So I work with a female like that, right, and vice versa, and so it goes. And then hopefully what happens at a certain point in your spiritual career, shall we say, is that you get to a point where you've worked very hard and very sincerely with all of these different practices, and hopefully you're sitting in meditation one day and you get the prana controlled nicely, and you get it to come down the two side channels, and then it flutes around and it enters the central channel, or the sushumna. Okay, and what you're shooting for is a complete dissolution of the prana from the rest of your body into this medial nerve. You can also get an approximate dissolution as well, and that's awesome. And then from that, what happens is that's like, think of it like wiring in a house or something like that. There's all these walls have wiring, and they carry a certain current or voltage, or we could say the prana is running at a certain vibration or frequency, okay? And then as it comes around, and if you can get it, coax it, and coerce it into the central channel, that's like perhaps analogous to maybe one of the really big power lines on the street outside that carries a much bigger voltage, much higher frequency. So if you can get that into that central channel, and you can get it to stay there, and you can get it to dissolve there, what happens is that prana changes, and it births basically a new kind of a body is elicited from this inducement of the prana into the central channel, and that comes out of your regular existing physical body, and they call that all kinds of different names, like rainbow body, light body, maya kaya, illusory body. There's all kinds of fancy names for it. Essentially, it's a sort of a super refined, very subtle pranic energy or body that is coming out of your regular body, because of what you've done with your inner work, okay? If you can get to that point, they say in a lot of different yogic and Buddhist scriptures, you're very close to reaching the final goal. And the final goal is to stabilize that body and to be able to reproduce it at will, and then hence you get into the whole talk that we're quite big on that in our lineage. Our teacher sits up in front of thousands of people and says, look, the goal is to get a body of light. And really that's what I'm trying to talk about right now is getting that to happen within yourself, and then birthing that body and stepping into that body, stepping out of this body into this new light body. So then you're not fettered by time and space and physical restraints anymore, okay? So you can, they say you can supposedly do all kinds of miraculous things, and becomes very blissful, and your main job at that point is to run around helping people, something like that. So we can look forward to that, and in the meantime, how we practice is directly correlates to, can we do that? Can we pull that off in this lifetime? So that's really like a sort of I guess a little recap for some of you on what we're doing, why we're working with a partner, why we're on the yoga mat, why we're busy doing pranayama every day, why we're doing bandha workshops and this and that. That's why. That is what we want to do, okay? Because once you've done that, then what is there else to do with your life? Everything else would become very I guess, sort of almost prosaic or mundane at that point. I mean, once you've stepped out into some kind of like amazing illusory rainbow body of light, you know, and you're just in perfect bliss all the time, then you know, all you would really want to do is to help other people do that, right? So that's the goal of partner practice. That's why we're up here talking about it. It's really awesome to think about that idea, that end goal, and to just hold that in your mind as you go about your day. You know, I think it plants extraordinary seeds in your mind for it to happen if it hasn't already happened for you. Because really all we can do is seed planting in our practice, you know. We have some kind of goal, and then how do we get there, you know? A lot of it is by visualizing ourselves in a certain way. We talked about Nagyal in the last talk, and Yvonne's going to talk about it again in a second here extensively. It's important to do that because in tantric practice, that's what's called taking the goal as a path. You already see yourself in a certain way, in a certain light, and you imagine that you've already reached that goal, you see. And something extraordinary happens in your mind if you keep on and on and on and on doing that. And it's just a retraining of the mind, right? You can do it. You just have to really want to do it, and you have to understand why you're doing it, and then you can do it. And at a certain point, you know, your mind will shift, and it will go from everything is just mundane and normal, and I'm just mundane and normal, to everything is extraordinary, and everything is unbelievable, and this world is a divine world, and all the people in it are divine, right? And every living being is like that. So that's all. Yeah. That's
yes,
all.
it is.
So don't forget it. That's why you're here. That's what you're doing. All the practices take you to that place. Okay. Yeah.
So, a beautiful handout that Lei has made for us. This is Lei right here. She's waving at me. She's at counterclockwise printing. Counterclockwise printing. It's on Broadway. She's gifting us with all these beautiful handouts. Counterclockwise printing. So, we'll read the first verse, the first principle. Understand why things fall apart. From the Abhidharma Kosha, the treasure house of higher knowledge. Everything we do is either stained or pure. Everything that begins is stained and therefore ends, unless we use the path. You know, this is referring to this concept that the seed for a thing's destruction, is in its birth. It's in its very birth. By the very fact that a thing is born, by the very fact that a thing starts, automatically the seed for its destruction is in there. Right? So long as everything that we do, think, and say is stained. This is this word stained reminds me of the original sin concept, in Christianity, right? We have original sin. And in this yogic science lineage and in our Tibetan Buddhist lineage, the original sin is to see things as though they're coming from their own side, as though they have some kind of inherency. Roger and I just came back from Arizona, where we saw our Holy Lama, which was really miraculous and amazing. And we went to one of his teachings, and he did the pen, Imagine. He did the pen. So that would have been maybe about, I want to say about the 1,000th time, maybe?
I don't know.
Maybe probably more than 1,000 times that we've seen him do the pen. And he says that like everybody needs to see it at least 3,000 times and hear it at least 3,000 times. I think that's the number he gives. So I don't know, how many people here have never heard the pen?
That's
You know?
enough. We're cleared for action.
So, and just as an aside, we also went to see our classmates who just emerged from retreat. And many of them had already left, but we had the very intense joy of spending about 24 hours with about a dozen of them who were still there, which was really, it was really, really cool, because it was the first time that we were able to communicate with people who have also done deep, long retreat. So it was very cathartic. Cathartic. This word means healing, right? Very healing. I didn't know we were broken, but anyway, it was very healing. It was very calming and soothing, you know, to be able to talk to them and interact with them. Although it made us completely lungy, you know, we like stayed up all night and, you know, janked around for a few more days, but it was very beautiful to see them. And they had a very difficult retreat, you know, many of you know, they had a very difficult retreat and a very beautiful retreat, very different from ours. But Earl is coming, Earl Burney is coming. He's one of our classmates and he's from BC. We saw him, he's doing really well, and he'll be here to give a talk on, I think on the retreat. So you should come because he'll tell you about that retreat. It was very different from ours. So anyway, the pen, but I'm going to use a sock, I guess. What is this thing? What is this thing?
Sock.
Yeah, sock.
My
This is-
sock.
Sock. Well, we were also at Roger's sister's house in Oregon, in Ashland, which is very close to where Rajneeshi lived and prayed and taught.
Oh, sure.
Osho, also known as Osho. And Susan, Roger's sister, has a beautiful black Labrador named Zen. And when Zen comes and he sees this thing sitting on the floor by the front door by the shoes, he goes bananas on this thing. That's what he does. And he runs around and you think that, oh God, you know, Zen, stop. Because he just flings his head around and it's like it's going to come right off. So I don't know whether he sees it as a sock. I don't know what it is he's doing, but certainly he's not putting it on his foot, right? Which is the function of a sock, right? It's the function of a sock, right? I don't know. I put tennis balls in my socks, and then I go like this, and I make a knot in it, like this. And then I lie down on it, and I roll around on this thing, like this, on this thing. Sock. Back roller. This is a back roller. These are tennis balls. They're not mangoes. Fortunately, somebody gave us 2 mangoes, because I didn't have any tennis balls. So, what does that mean? What is it then? Is it a sock or is it a, what is it? What's the thing Zen does with it? A toy. I guess he thinks it's a toy.
Yeah, he just tears it to bits.
He tears it to bits. So he thinks this is a toy. It's a sock. I hate socks. I really hate socks. And for me, as soon as possible, I like to shed my socks. I really don't like wearing socks, you know. I should really live in Arizona or somewhere, right? I never wear socks, and Roger always has to say, put some socks on. It's like 5 degrees outside, you know? But I never do. Because this is a back rolling thing, see? Is what this is for me. So the question, of course, is always, well, what is it then? What is it really? Is it a sock? Or is it a chew toy? Or is it a device for housing my back massage implements? It's all of them? Yeah, you could say that. Well, which then? It's all of them, but it's not a chew toy for me, except for that moment when I showed you what Zen did with it. It was very liberating, but it's not generally a chew toy for me. It's not generally a sock for me, frankly. So maybe for some of you this is a sock. You know, for Zen it's clearly not a sock, and for me it's often not a sock. So that's the emptiness of this thing. That's the emptiness of this thing. See? When we put this down and we all go home and this thing is still sitting here, what is it? What is it?
Neither sock or...
Nada.
Nada.
Nada. That's right, it's nada. It's nothing. It's nothing. So it depends on what then?
Who's looking?
Depends on who's looking, right? Depends on who's looking. And so the dog sees it as a chew toy, and you know, Roger likes socks, you know, so he sees it as a sock. You know, I hate socks. So for me it's a thing for massaging my back. And that's fine. So the thing is empty of having any inherent nature as being one or the other of those things, those three things. The sock itself is empty of that. The dog or the person, right? Like, for example, Roger sees it as a sock, I often don't. So not only is the sock empty of being a sock for a human, like depending on which human is looking, you know, it could be a sock and maybe not. Certainly there must be many cultures who have no idea what this thing is, you know, and maybe they use it like for some sort of a knapsack or something, hauling stuff or, you know. So the thing is empty of having any inherent nature, which is fixed, that you can ascribe to it, which is permanent and it stays with this thing. It's empty of that. Not only that, but it's empty of any interaction that you have with it. Like, I don't use this thing for a sock very often, as little as I can. You know, the dog doesn't use this thing for a sock or a back massager. Its function, the interaction of whoever is looking, is empty. Sock, back massager. You know? So its function has no inherency. The relationship between me and the sock and him and the sock is empty, is not fixed, can shift from moment to moment. So, you know, currently for some reason Roger sees this thing as a sock and he loves them and he wears them all the time, and like, it's really hard. If you ever see him without his socks on, it's a rare thing. So he has some kind of karma. He has some kind of potential to see it as a sock on a more or less an ongoing basis, whereas I don't. I don't have this karma. That's all. I just don't have this seed. I don't have this potential. So now we're going to extrapolate that a little bit, okay? We're going to extrapolate that out. Let's talk about partners. Let's talk about partners. Partners, especially the partner in the first 6 months, like the partner who is like the God of all gods, and the partner who, you know, the partner who is the answer to, like, has descended from heaven. That partner is very much an Exhibit A, right? We think. Exhibit A is like that one thing which is fixed in all of the universe. Nothing has any nature of coming from its own side. Nothing has any fixed quality that stays with it, except for this divine partner in the first 6 months. And then the partner in the last 6 months also has lots of inherency, right? Right? Then, like, somewhere in the middle you think, okay, we'll compromise, like now you're right and now I'm right, and like now it'll be this way and now it'll be that way, and now I'll wear the shoes of the ogre, and then tomorrow you can wear them, this kind of thing, right? So you kind of shift a little through the life of the relationship, and then somewhere in the last 6 months it goes back to being, you are a jerk. You are such an asshole. From your own side. You have always been one, you will always be one, and that's just the way it is, I don't know what I was doing with you. And now I'm out of here, On to the next one, right? So that inherency in the partner is also not there. There is no such thing as any quality that you can ascribe to your partner that belongs to them, that's coming from them out at you. How do we know this? How do we know this? Like, I don't know about you, but for me, right, I think about my life and I think about the partners I've had. I've had 2 husbands, and then one kind of like a husband with a small h in the middle. 3 really. And then somehow, and then even before that, I think back, and it has this same flavor. Last time we talked about what flavor is your samsara. Like, what flavor is your favorite mental affliction, right? Well, my favorite flavor in the relationship shtick, right, the relationship game, it's a very similar flavor that's carrying through, see? Like, how come this is always happening to me? That's the flavor I'm talking about, right? We each have this thing. The answer to the question, how come this is always happening to me? The answer to that question is your favorite flavor. Your favorite samsara flavor, Whether you're talking about your boss, or your children, or your partner, or music, or the kinds of foods you like, we have this concept that the qualities of these things are coming at us. And why is this always happening to me? You see? Or how come I always have to end up with the escargot? I hate country music. Like, why is it that there's always country music playing, at the Foundation restaurant? It isn't. We went in there today and we had to leave, didn't we? Because there was some kind of music coming at us. It was coming at us. Interestingly, we went to another restaurant and there wasn't any music coming at us. But you can be sure that we will have this problem again with this irritating music coming at us. This is a common theme in our flavor of samsara. Irritating music, So it's good to think about that. It's good to think about patterns that we have, in our lives, especially the deep-seated patterns which move forward from boss to boss, from job to job, from city where you live to city where you move to, from partner that you had to partner that you dumped to partner that you then got, Like, it can be very interesting to have a look at that and note that the God of the first 6 months repeats, and then the asshole of the last 6 months repeats. And it's kind of like this refrain, right? It's like a little refrain. So then you have to wonder, well, can't we just be happy with our partner? Isn't there some way we can just keep one and just like stay with them and be happy, Because if you really look at it, it's not working so well to trade them in on a continual basis, is it? Anyway, you can answer that. So that's the pen, that's the pen, right? Geshe Michael does it with an actual pen. Do you want to do it with a pen? Would you like to do Yulia's pen? Just so that they have the 1001st time.
Yeah, okay. So all it is, it's just people see objects differently, right? Depending on who's looking. That's the bottom line on all of this stuff. People put different labels onto different objects. They have different names for it. They have different relationships to that object. It means different things to them all over the world, as Yvonne was talking about. You know, if I show this to somebody in the jungle in Papua New Guinea or something, you know, they're not going to think that it's a pen necessarily. Somebody in the world doesn't know what this thing does, and they don't call it a pen. And as Yvonne already said, we're just talking like humankind. Of course, you know, most animals wouldn't know what it was either, right? So,
Which is what?
which is, yeah, I mean, we're thinking that it's the pen. So, and that goes for everything, as we've been saying. So, every single thing that you engage with has the same lack of inherency that the pen does. There isn't anything coming from this object which inherently or self-existently makes it a pen. And the proof of that is that if there was, everybody would be forced to see it as a pen because it had this thing coming out of it that just said pen to everybody, including the dog, including every living being would just look at that and go, yeah, man, that's a pen. You know, of course it is. You know, like some alien lands and I give him the thing, he'd be like, hey, nice pen, you know. Everybody would know that it was a pen because it had some kind of quality radiating out from it that said, I'm a pen. It's not the case. If you really think about it and you chew it, you will see that it is true, and that if it's true for this one thing, it must be true for everything else. You can't build a sort of a what do you call it, like a 50-50 worldview, really. It has to be all or nothing. You know, and this is where this whole Exhibit A thing comes in our immediate lineage, which is, you know, Exhibit A is the thing that does have inherency and exists out there independent of my projection of it and my labeling of it. And that's what we call Exhibit A. Usually it's, you know, somebody that we're having an issue with, you know, and we see them in a certain way, you know, like this person is X towards me, or they, you know, they make me jealous, or they make me angry, or something like that. And then we forget about the pen, you see. And then in that moment, they become an Exhibit A, because why? Because we believe that the qualities that we're seeing in them are coming from them to, you know, from them at us. They're not, we've lost the connection. We've misunderstood at that point. We're going to get into that in a second. Yeah. So, that's all. I mean, there isn't anything more than that. People see things differently. People label things differently. They have different relationships towards objects, right? That's it. That's the pen.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Oh, sorry. I'm just about to steal your pen. Thank you.
So, and then just along that theme, I think this is a good time to also talk a little bit about the emptiness of the dog, you know. There's the, you know, and then there's the dog, and then there's the thing that the dog does with the, you know, or whoever it is doing whatever they're doing with. So, dog is what? Generally, a dog is a pet, right? A companion, you know. My mother just lost her cat of 17 years, and it's just, it's heartrending because, God, you know, I was there when her husband, my stepfather, my beautiful stepfather died, and the reaction, I think somehow it's worse now, because when he died, she had the cat, but now the cat died, see? And she's just really grieving, you know, and for her, you know, yeah, of course the cat is an animal and everything, but the cat was way more than an animal for my mother, you She lives by herself. She's 87. And this cat was, and you know, my uncle, we just came from taking care of my uncle in Tucson, Arizona, and he has 2 cats whom he feels about equally, you know, the way my mother does. I mean, but only it's really wild. Like, my uncle feeds the cats on his bed, not in a dish. You know those dried kibble things? He just takes a handful of the kibble things and puts them on the quilt, and then brings the cat up to eat on the bed, you know. You know, and in ancient Egypt, cats were royalty, right? But, you know, some people eat cats and dogs, right? And especially dogs. They're not pets, you know? They're like, not even, like, you can't even, they're so unclean that people won't even have them around. They just put them to death on sight, you know? Or they're food in a very starved population. So, dog has no self-nature, which is common across the board, across the universe, you know. There's no fixedness about this dog, and there's no fixedness about this chew toy, and there's no fixedness about the interaction that we have with this thing, right? And there's no fixedness about, see? None at all. You know, you people may see something when you see Roger, or you may know him and you may see him in a certain way, and this may be completely different from the way that I do. You know, we all know that this is true, right? We all know that this is true. And especially when you think about how you feel about the partner of the first 6 months and the partner of the last 6 months. I mean, now you're talking about you seeing this person so differently in the first 6 months from the last 6 months. Never mind how anybody else may see this person or you. So any qualities that you see, that you imagine yourself to have, any qualities that you imagine your partner or anyone else to have, these qualities are coming from you. They're coming from some kind of seed potential that you have. We're just forcing you to see these qualities in them. And I must say that deep, extended silence affords an opportunity to witness this whole game, this whole Maya, you know, very clearly, because we've told you this before, but there is no end of mental afflictions in retreat, you know, and there's no end of like stuff that goes on, but there's nobody there to like blame, you know. How can they do this to me? But there's no they, you know? So then what? What happened? What is it then? Who did it? If there's no they, you know? And especially because Roger and I, within our retreat, we also did solo retreat where we didn't see one another for extended periods of time. So then it became really a very, very interesting situation of looking for the they. Surely there must be somebody who's making me feel this way, you know? Surely somebody is doing this to me. Just be on the gate, probably. You know, where are they? Somebody's doing this to me. I know it, you know? So it's pretty insidious. And so retreat does provide a very nice opportunity. So we encourage you all to do retreat, you know, in some way, shape, or form. And, you know, our classmate Doug Wienhoff has come many times, and he's going to come more times. So if you haven't already availed himself of his skill in teaching what to do with yourself, you know, in retreat, you should go, because he's very, very good. He can teach you how to maneuver your way through 3 days or 7 days or 10 days or a month or whatever you want to take on of silence. So, let's see. What are we doing?
so let's see, I'm reading the second principle. Stop trying things that don't work. From the Yoga Sutra written in India about 18 centuries ago. In ignorance we misunderstand our world, things that cannot last, things which are unclean and painful and which are not themselves seem to us as if they will last and as if they are clean and pleasant and very much themselves. So, before we get into that, we wanted to touch on, okay, so now we understand that our partner is just like the sock, right? They're just like the pen. They're just like everything that we talked about that Yvonne explained so beautifully. They are empty. They don't have any qualities in and of themselves, and everything that we see about our partner is coming from us. All the good, the bad, and the ugly, okay? And it gets like that, you know. At a certain point, this path actually can be really annoying because, you know, you're forced to acknowledge at a certain point that that is indeed the case, and it's all coming from me. There isn't anything out there that's coming from my partner, you know. So I have to start, if I'm not, you know, cool about something, I need to figure out what's going on in my mind, in my world, in my life, you see. And so you become like a research scientist, and you start figuring out what the heck it is, you know, that you've done or been doing or are doing that is forcing you to see your partner in a certain way. However, what we want to talk about right now is, so my partner is empty, they don't have any self-existent qualities, so in the terms of a spiritual partnership, I can now impute divine-like qualities onto my partner. Because they're blank or neutral, I can now pretend. Or maybe you don't even have to pretend. Maybe they just are like this angelic person for you, and that's awesome. I would ask, can you sustain that? We'll talk about that in a second. But, you know, if you're not in that place where it's all just like bliss and void and everything, and, you know, at certain points of the day they really annoy you or something happens, can I impute these qualities onto them and hold that in my mind as I go about my day? You know, I'm living with a person who's divine. We talked about Nagyal in the last class, which is sort of loosely translated means divine pride, thinking about yourself and now your partner in a certain kind of a way. In the intro, we talked about how he used the path as a goal. Okay, so that's a perfect example of what we're talking about here. How that idea comes together. And so, what's the point? You know, why am I going to struggle to see my partner in a certain way that isn't a normal way? Why am I going to ascribe all these divine qualities onto them? There are lots of reasons why you want to do that. It's a very awesome practice. It's a very fun practice. And it essentially, when I was thinking about it, I thought, well, what is the big deal about that? It allows a sort of a space or an availability for you to receive teachings from them. Because that's why you're together, you see. You want to be able to start getting divine transmissions from your partner. Okay? It could just be a certain look that they give you across the room. It could be, you know, when they touch your arm or something like that. It could be just a one word that they say to you that triggers something in your mind or in your heart. And you're like, oh my God, that is unbelievable. What an incredible place to be in a relationship when you're able to access that with your partner, and you're able to use each other. It's not a dirty word, you know, I am using my partner, you know, to access divine transmissions, you know. That's awesome. That's where you want to be in your relationship. And how you do that is you get this sustained view of them that you apply to them of they're already divine. I'm living with God, actually. That's who I'm living with. I live with God. Every morning I wake up beside God, and everything that she does, there's some serious message in there for me. Why? Because of the sock, okay? Because of the pen, because of all of this, because of emptiness, and because of karma and emptiness. It can be so. And, you know, we say, okay, you fake it till you make it. And in doing so, you plant very powerful seeds in your mind that one day in the not too distant future, it just will be like that. You know, you can trick your mind, and then it will follow you down this logical path because you proved it to yourself with the sock. If you don't believe the sock or you don't understand the sock, then this method isn't really going to work for you. It's not going to hold water, okay? You have to understand that very clearly and very deeply. There is no inherency about my partner. And so, if that is really true and I believe that, then I am available to receive all kinds of divine messages from them because I've made them into this God, into this person. Okay? And also, while I'm at it, I'll do that about myself. And now we're like a pair of angels. I mean, that's truly the goal. You know, you see all these things in like religious icons and so forth, you know, cherubs flying around and angels and everything. And why not? I mean, that's the deal. That would be like the light body thing that we talked about at the very beginning. So if you do that on a sustained basis, then you will find that not only do you see your partner in a certain way that's a sort of a higher way or a not normal, mundane way, you start to see everything in the world like that. And it will filter out and it will start spreading out. And here's the real deal. If you can do it with one person, you can do it with many. Okay? If you can do it with one, you can do it with many. And you can blow it up and the whole world can be like that for you. You see? And that, if you want to talk about it in Hatha Yoga terms, that is directly proportionate to how much prana you're able to induce into your central channel, which was also from the intro that we just gave. Okay? How much prana you can get into your central channel will directly reflect how divine your world is, period. And your partner, of course. So, it's an awesome practice, it's fun, and you have to struggle with it, because there'll be moments where, you know, they turn into, your partner is suddenly exhibit A, and you know, you're thinking that they have some inherent quality that's really annoying you, and you know, you need to train your mind to think about the pen or the sock or whatever it is again and again and again and again, so that you can recall it on a moment's notice. Try to split off a little piece of your mind to watch the rest of your mind as you go about your day, and then you can have a higher degree of awareness when you start to lose that view. Okay? It can be done. You can do it. Am I going on to the last thing? No. Sorry, can I just say one last thing? So that's a sort of a ramped up Nagyal part 2. We did Nagyal part 1 in the first talk, that's part 2. There's also, I think it's important to, there can be a problem with that in that there's a sort of there's a right way to do Nagyel, and there's a twisted, diluted way to do Nagyel, and it's very dangerous, and you have to be aware of that. So. They call it divine pride, but really I would almost want to relabel that like divine humility or something like that. If you find yourself getting arrogant or cocky or, writing prescriptions for things about anything that you care to do in your life because you're now divine and I can pretty much do anything I like, then those would be good clues that you've kind of taken this idea and gone the wrong way with it. You took a wrong off-ramp. We were doing a lot of that when we were driving around. We're like, whoops, wrong way, and then you can't get off for ages and you have to circle back, which is what you do in your practice too. Like you take a wrong thing and then you hopefully you come back and you get on the right track about where you want to go. So there's a wrong way to do it, and there's or not a wrong, but just a sort of a twisted way to do it, and then a sort of a more pleasant way or a more efficient way. And I think it involves humility and humbleness, actually. And then you will find that you're probably closer to the right way to approach this whole thing. Okay?
Just touching on this verse from the sutra again, in ignorance we misunderstand our world. Things that cannot last, things which are unclean and painful, and which are not themselves, seem to us as if they will last, and as if they are clean and pleasant and very much themselves. So, the situations that arise between partners after the first 6 months and before the last 6 months, that series of interactions, that can go on for a lifetime, I guess, they are all a series of exercises designed to try to keep us together and keep us happy. Like, we're trying to stay happy, right? I mean, we are trying to stay happy when we enter into partnership with somebody. Even after the first 6 months, we have some kind of a desire to stay happy with somebody. And we go through all sorts of different hoops and things to try to stay happy with them. And I don't know, I want to give the example of this lady that we met. And she was telling us about her husband, who also happened to be her lama, her guru. And he was he was, because he's no longer living, but he was a very high guru, a very powerful guru. And this person, her husband, she was very, very devoted to him. She was very devoted to him. But they had a very interesting and strange relationship. He was clearly the guru, and she was clearly the student, although they were also husband and wife. And he used to do very interesting, strange things. So, for example, they would go somewhere to some sort of a gathering or an event or something like that, and when they entered into the room, he would immediately make a beeline for the most attractive woman in the room and proceed to engage with this woman, in a really like a very provocative way, right? So the wife didn't know what to make of this. She went through a huge gamut of emotions, right? She went through intense jealousy, and she went through rage, and she went through distress, and she didn't know what to do, confusion, I need to get out of here, I need to leave this person, it's completely outrageous, because this was like an ongoing thing, it wasn't just a one-time deal. So, and eventually, as she tells it, she learned to use the situation as a practice where she would go into a deep state of meditation, which she knew how to do very, very well. She was very skilled at this, having spent many years doing it. So, and he had taught her how to do this meditation. So, you know, she didn't say this, but I wondered whether she experienced this as a test of her meditative prowess, you know, her meditative skill. Like, now let's see you go into stillness, you know. Now let's see you. And so that's what she did. She just tried to use this as a practice. And as I say, she's a very skilled meditator, so she was able to use that particular situation in that kind of a way. And actually, you know, she lost him. He passed away. But until he did, they were married. They were married. And, you know, I think about that situation, I think, wow, you know. Me, I couldn't do that. Like, you know, I might be able to do it, but I would have to remove myself from the situation. You know? I wouldn't be able to sit in that room and watch that going on, you know, and have Roger looking under women's skirts and stuff like that, and like stay there and go into shamatha, you know? Like, that's not, maybe I'll have to do another 3-year retreat. I don't know. That's not who I am, that's not where I am, and I would have to leave the room, or if not the relationship, right? And then I could meditate. Then I could go into meditation on it. And I would, you know, I would. And I would think, you know, what was going on there? You know, what caused me to, like, what is it? What is it that caused me to have to see this in my relationship this way? Why is this going on, you know? What have I done? What sorts of seeds have I planted that is causing me to see this? And I just want to be very clear that to understand the causes for something, and to have a look at your, you know, your life and the way that it's appearing to you, and to have some understanding that it's not coming at you, and to have some deep understanding that it's coming from you, requires some kind of an intuition about why it's appearing to you that way. You know, if you're not having some sort of an intuitive flash about it, I think it's very important to meditate, to try to understand it. Having said that, I'm not saying that you need to stay in that situation. What I'm saying is I wouldn't be able to stay. You know, I would use it as a practice, but I wouldn't be able to do it right there in the room, night after night, day after day, like that, you know. And there are many other examples, you know, situations where one or the other partner is being abused in some way, emotionally or physically or whatever. Oh, you know, did I plant the seeds for this? Yes, you did, actually. Does that mean you're supposed to sit there and undergo pain? Subject yourself to pain? No, it doesn't mean that. It doesn't mean that. It could. It could. You know, if you're a 10th level bodhisattva, it might certainly mean that. And the way that you would experience that kind of a situation might not be the same, you know, as me. Clearly, that lady was not experiencing the situation in the way that I would. She might have been at first, but you know, she quickly put her strong skills, her spiritual practice to work for her. So, you know, so then it's like, okay, something like that happens. You know, these are common situations in relationships, right? Somebody, you know, does something, the other one doesn't like it. Some variation on that theme, right? That's really all there is. Somebody's always doing something that somebody doesn't like, you know, and they want to blame the other person, right? I mean, in the final analysis, that's what it is. And you know, you can call it jealousy, you can call it anger, you can call it rage, you can call it anything.
Immaturity.
You know, pardon?
Immaturity.
You could call it immaturity, but in the end, what it is, it's this seeing things which are unclean as clean or clean as unclean. It's having a misunderstanding about where these things are coming from, which is the root of the problem. So the root is not, the problem is not so much, you know, is this person flirting, doing out of control flirting all the time, you know? And is that the problem, you know? Or they're really nasty to me, they're really rude to me, they speak in a way that's not respectful. oh, whatever. These kinds of things are just, I've been thinking about this way of looking at them like that's my report card, you know? That's my report card of how my spiritual practice is going, you know, how people and things are appearing to me. And how much I think that, why don't they stop doing this to me, you know? The degree to which I'm thinking that is also, it's kind of like a flunk. If I'm thinking that, you know, somebody's doing something to me, I'm like, oh my God, you know, I've got to like retake that whole course now, because that's a definite F, see? So we get to the point where we must come to the point where we have an understanding that it's not, you know, do I do this thing or do I do that thing? Do I leave the room because they're being so outrageous? Or do I leave the relationship? Or do I scream later? You know? Like, or do I do the same thing? I know, I'll do the same thing. Wait a second. Wait a second. You don't want to do that. You know why? Because that's why it's happening in the first place. Because you did it. That's what we, you know, if that's what you're seeing, that's what you did. It's generally very close. Sometimes it's not so simple as that, but generally speaking, it's very close. It can be very subtle, okay? I don't want to get too simplistic with this thing. Karmic correlation is very, very complicated. You know, only Buddhas truly understand the karmic causes for things. But you can think about it, you know, if you want to get simplistic about it, the only thing that I would recommend that you get truly simplistic about is just be kind to other people. If you can do that, you don't really have to worry about anything. You don't have to worry about, like, you know, straying partners. You don't have to worry about cranky bosses. You don't have to worry about people murdering you, raping you, stealing from you. You don't have to worry about anything. If you truly could be kind to other people all the time, that kind of simplicity, I'll go along with it, okay? But when you're talking about the karmic correlation of why, you know, why is my partner acting like this, you know? Why is my partner unfaithful? Why is my partner beating me up? It's not, generally you can say that the cause is very similar, right? That is one of the laws of karma. The cause is very similar. I mean, to get a green pepper, you have to plant a green pepper seed, right? It's true. But it could be a yellow pepper and it could be an orange pepper and, you know, it could be a hot pepper and it could be a sweet pepper and, like, it can get a little subtle and the seeds can all look the same. So we have to talk a little bit more about that, and we will. But for now, I just wanted to address the fact that ignorance is thinking that they're an asshole and they're doing this to you. That's ignorance. Wisdom is thinking, wow, they're really being an asshole this time. I wonder what's going on. To consider that there is some seed in your mind to be forced to see them in this way. That's the beginning of wisdom. That's the birth of wisdom. Ultimately, wisdom looks like seeing everything that your partner says and does, and you can even start to hear what they think. And that's really the day. I'm not sure whether it's the day to look forward to. It is. It's the day to look forward to, you know? And everything that your partner says and thinks and does is what Roger was saying. It's perfect purity. And it's exactly what you needed to hear and see, you know, and divine about how to advance in your spiritual practice. And so, you know, somewhere between those two things is spiritual practice, right? That's what we call it, practice, somewhere between those two things. Understanding that they never are coming from out there at you. It's never, what are they doing to me now? It's not ever that. It looks like that. And sometimes you do have to treat it like that. But you need to address what kind of seed it is in your own mind and in your own heart that forces you to see that. And then gradually as you practice, you start to see it as a wow, you know, like a big rejoicing. Oh, good, you know, he's doing this to me again. I get to shamatha, 60 seconds. What am I, you know? Then it becomes like a game, right? What can I do with this now? And then pretty soon, it doesn't even, like pretty soon there's no more like opportunity even for the game. Because guess what? They stop doing it. Then there isn't even any more an opportunity to try and like get the shamatha in 10 seconds flat, or whatever your preferred method of practice is. You see? And you'd be sitting there thinking, God, make me jealous already. Like let me see, so then it's something to sharpen your claws on, right? Something to practice. And that's really that's the third principle, but I think Roger's got something else he wants to do, right?
Yeah, so we went to Arizona, and then we hit our favorite yoga studio, Yoga Oasis, really hard, and it was an amazing week. And it's so hot down there that you get like an extra free 10% on your asana practice just from the heat. It's amazing, so you don't even have to try harder. It's just suddenly you're doing weird stuff that you weren't able to do anymore, But, why am I talking about that? Because what I wanted to touch on was this idea in a partnership. I think one of the key problems that people have is grasping. So we wanted to talk about that a little bit tonight. And, really, when I look back on my relationships and I look at the big problems that I have had, almost exclusively it was because I was grasping or holding very, very, very hard to my position, to what I wanted, to what I believed was correct, and it was all about me, this just insane reaching out and holding to something so hard. And truly, since we've come out of retreat, it's so interesting to me because we see this incredible beauty in the world and this incredible just divinity, and then we also see incredible pain. And we also look at people and we just see grasping that everybody has. It's like it's shaping your whole body. How you grasp to things is shaping your body. Like the prana is moving in one or other of the side channels that we talked about, and people get twisted. People's like one shoulder is way higher than the other one, or their like neck is doing some weird thing, or something's going on. They've got a hip issue. These are side channel issues. These are physical manifestations of a very, very strong either ignorant desire and wanting things, or ignorant aversion and anger and pushing away of things. These are manifestations of side channel energy. And grasping to what we believe is right, and then holding to that position is I think, a great source of problem for many relationships. What's that got to do with going to Arizona and getting, a free 10% with your asana, right? Well, you have to, if you want to get into some kind of serious asana position or something, it's unlikely that without practice that you're just going to pop into it. Maybe a kid could because they're really flexible, but for the most part, people need to practice, right? And you get to a certain place in your asana practice and you keep doing it hopefully every day, and then you go to Arizona and you get an extra free 10%. But grasping is like that. How do you begin to ungrasp? How do you begin to let go of this insane stranglehold that we have with our minds and these positions that we hold? You practice. You practice just like asana, just like meditation, just like everything that we've been talking about, this whole path. you're practicing. And how do you release the vines of the grasping in what is grasped? How do you do that? It seems like it's almost impossible at times. The first thing that you do is that you recall the pen or the sock, okay? You have to train your mind to recall that again and again and again. And specifically, you have to remind yourself about what it is that you're grasping to. You know, my partner is like, we're talking about partners here, right? Partner is XYZ thing, you know, and I'm holding to that position. Just thinking about the pen helps to release your mind from that position, because you have already proved it to yourself logically, hopefully, again and again and again in meditations, and hopefully you come to debate here and you talk about it and you debate it more, and you chat about it with somebody at the coffee shop and stuff like that, right? You start to imbue your mind very deeply with this understanding. And that in and of itself is a very powerful first step to letting go of that hold, this grasping that we're talking about. Another thing that you can do, which is one of my personal favorites, which I'm always excited to talk about, is, we already mentioned it, is splitting off a little piece of your mind and watching yourself, okay? Being aware that you're in the middle of a big grasping attack, you know, and that you're holding to some position really strongly. Having awareness of that, just that alone also begins to release that binding, that holding that we have. So I thought that we would just do like a really brief little, what time do we have? 8:55. Are we going for till around 9:30? Yeah. Okay. We're just going to do a really short little visualization, meditation visualization, and then we're on the home stretch, and we'll let you all go home. So please assume some kind of meditative posture. We're just doing a short visualization. Yeah. So, see yourself in your house or your apartment or wherever it is that you live, and if you have a partner or not, then you can think about maybe a partner that you used to have or that you had a problem with or something like that. And if you have a partner, then visualize that you've just had an altercation with them, and you've taken a very strong position on something, you know, the current flavor, the current topic, and your partner has too. They've taken an opposite position, and there's been a sort of a heated discussion, we could say, about it. And then they say something that just really, really annoys you now, you know, and you see yourself, okay, I'm going to just go off into the other room now. I'm not going to take this any further. So off you go. You remove yourself from the situation. And now you're watching yourself. You're in this other room. You've left your holy partner behind for a while. And you start pacing around the room. See yourself pacing around now. And you're getting more and more angry about what they said to you. And why can't they understand my position? Why are they not listening to me? How could they even say that to me, in fact? How could they do that to me? You know, and you're running your fingers through your hair, you're anguished. You're anguished, you're angry, you're upset. Just really get a feel for that. And, you know, make it personal. Maybe it's something that, you know, maybe it's not that. Maybe it's jealousy, maybe it's pride or something else, a different flavor. What is it for you? What's your flavor? Think about, is this a reoccurring flavor in my life? Is this something that just keeps popping up? Maybe it just has a little bit of a different shape or color to it, you know, partner by partner, day by day, year by year, but at its root, at its core, is there something about it that is very, very much the same through my whole life, or for a great part of my life? And you're still pacing around and you're still mad at your partner. And just look at yourself now in this meditation doing that, you know. How silly am I looking to myself? How futile is this position, this grasping that I'm having right now, this holding? Yeah, I've done it a million times before and it didn't really help, actually. You know, and here I am doing it again. Look at me. Look at me, furiously, you know, like chopping vegetables, and I'm so angry. You know? Look at me driving to work, gripping the steering wheel so hard because I am so pissed off. Look at me planning my revenge. What is my retort going to be? Did any of that ever help me in my whole life? All the times that I did these things? Now see yourself taking a different position. You and your partner have your altercation. You put your position forward, they put their position forward, there's some kind of heated discussion, and then you understand in that moment that the grasping and what is grasped have no qualities of their own. Nothing self-existent about it. In other words, you bring up the pen. And isn't it true that their position and their belief is just as valid as yours? Isn't it? How could you ever tell somebody that, you know, you're wrong? You have a wrong position here, and I'm right. How does that work? Because wouldn't that then mean that somebody could come up to you and tell you, no, it's your position that's wrong. I'm the one that's right. You see, it just goes around in a vicious circle. So you make a resolve to stop it right there as it begins to blow up. There's a crucial point. And you make a conscious effort to let go. Don't you really want to just give your partner everything that they want anyway? Don't you just really want to make them perfectly happy? Why are you holding so hard? So see yourselves now discussing this thing with maturity, with logic, with love, with kindness towards each other rather than aversion. See that love is the ultimate cure for every problem that there is, not only in your relationship, but in the entire planet, actually. And just see now yourself as a being that can just give love. You don't need love. You're a being that gives love instead. And it's just pouring out of you now like light. Love and light. And it's just enveloping you and your partner, and then it just radiates out the street, the neighborhood, all the houses, all the living rooms, all the different people, and it just keeps rippling out. It's exploding now across Canada, the whole of North America, and then it's just wrapping the whole planet, this shroud of love and light and bliss. Okay, you can open your eyes. So by the way, one other thing I just thought of, back to Nagil for 1 second. You and your partner are really trying to see each other as divine, right? There's one really big caveat with that. There's one thing that you must remember. It's a mutual effort. Okay? Because if it isn't, and you're not both sincerely struggling to do that, you'll end up in a very lopsided situation, and it will fail. We just watched an unbelievable movie about a holy teacher giving a talk at the Mahasuka Center in LA, and he really got off on a roll. It was a deep dive into emptiness or something it was called, and he's like, there's going to be no break, I have to keep going. The bake sale will fail tonight, he says.
And there was a baby crying, he says.
Yeah, and then the baby's like, the baby
Quiet.
will not cry and the bake sale will fail. He's like, I'm on a roll, I gotta keep going. But it's like, you have to both be interested in doing that thing that we talked about, this like pretending that we're both divine, right? Otherwise, it'll fail because, just like the bake sale did, because it'll twist itself, and you won't be able to get that reciprocal energy flow that we were talking about, and all these blocks and mental afflictions will come up because it's a lopsided one-way effort. Do you see? So it has to be two people reaching for the same goal together. And coming together like that. It can't just be that one person is trying to do that. I suppose if you were an extraordinary practitioner, you could do it like that. But generally speaking, for the most part, I think it's let's just say it's a heck of a lot easier if you're both reaching for the goal like that. Okay, let's redo it like that. It's a heck of a lot easier because two comes together as one. But it makes more than one, right? You get the energy of two people reaching for something, but more than one thing comes out of it, or more than two things come out of it, something like that. Anyway, I hope that made sense.
So Roger was just talking about the third principle, actually. He was talking about garden away the problems. That's your third verse from the Diamond Cutter Sutra, spoken by the Buddha 2,500 years ago. The king of Kalinka was cutting off my fingers and even my arms, but it never occurred to me to think of him as him. Why? Well, Subhuti, if I'd thought of him as him, then I would have gotten upset. This verse is referring to a story of the king of Kalinka who was hunting. He was hunting in the forest one day, with his retinue, and his wife, the queen, didn't go hunting, and she decided to gather flowers in the forest. And while she was gathering flowers in the forest, she came upon a wild forest yogi who was sitting in the forest and practicing. And she went to him and she begged him to teach her, and he agreed to do this. He agreed to do so. So he was giving her teachings in the forest when the king returned. And the king thought the worst upon seeing them sitting together in the forest, and he immediately proceeded to cut off the fingers of the wild forest yogi, just the tips of the fingers, one at a time. And then, the next part of his fingers, and then up his arm slowly like this, gradually. And the name of the wild forest yogi was Kshanti. Kshanti, it means peace. Patience. Patience. Peace, patience. And he didn't get angry as this was happening. The main point of the story is that he didn't get upset at all. He didn't get angry at all. And when the verse says, if I had thought of him as him, then I would have gotten upset, simply means, had I thought, wow, what is he doing to me? I would have fought, for my life and my fingers. But all that he experienced was sorrow, that he had had the nasty karma to have this thing befall him. And also that his karma had to play out that way. You see? So he planted some seeds for violence in his life, past life or that life or sometime in the past. And so because of that, somebody has to attack him. Somebody has to show violence towards him. So he has to experience pain, and he did experience pain. He just didn't experience any anger at the king. He felt only sorrow, because now the king has to do this hideously violent, vicious act in order to ripen his seed. See? So, it's not just that people who are angry at you it's a drag to have people angry at you. It's much, much worse than that. Much more insidious than that, They can you can only experience them as being angry at you if you have the seeds to experience them that way. And there's really only one way to plant those kinds of seeds, and that is to have gotten angry at someone else. So now, you've gotten angry at someone else. Somebody has to become angry at you. Your seed is now ripened, right? But you should have some consciousness of what's going on in your world in order for your seeds to be ripening for you. And be responsible for the people who are having to get angry at you in order to ripen your karma. You can look at it that way. And so that's what Roger was talking about, right? And the fact that we have to approach these kinds of seeds that ripen for us some other way. What are we going to do? So what are we going to do? We talked about it a little bit. Our teacher calls it the 4 paths of karma. This is a very famous Tibetan formula, the 4 paths of karma. And I'll list them for you very simply, just to start with, because, Sherry has taught the karma of love, and she's taught the karma of money, and she's taught the karma of relationships.
That was love.
Love, health. And if you didn't come and you didn't hear it, that's your problem, Then she'll have to teach it again, and then you should go. to get a full teaching on the path of karma. There are 4 steps. I'll list them quickly. The first is determine the nature of the problem. Like, what's going on? What is the problem? What is it that you don't like? Or what is it that you want? Okay? What do you want to avoid, or what do you want to have? Those are the 2 things that give rise to ignorance. So in order to approach keeping things away that you don't want with wisdom, and in order to approach getting things that you do want with wisdom, you have to apply these 4 steps of karma. You have to determine exactly what it is you want or exactly what it is you don't want. Very, very exactly. That's really key. The second thing is you make a plan. How am I going to get them? Okay, so it might look something like, oh God, my husband just like, he has this thing where he beelines to the most attractive woman in the room and proceeds to like go home with them. What am I going to do about this? So first of all, I have to determine, why do I have this seed? Why do I see this? What did I do? What have I done in this life, right? And remember that small seeds grow into, acorns grow into oak trees, okay? And maybe the seed I planted was a little wee tiny acorn, right? Something very subtle along those lines. Maybe not like that. But the acorn grew, and the acorn grew as a friggin' big oak tree, right? So the second step is determining how you can shift that karma. How can I purify that kind of karma so I don't have to see that? I want to keep that kind of stuff away in my life. What do I want? What do I want? I want a faithful, loving partner who genuinely is not interested in having other relationships, either in crowded rooms only or otherwise. Okay? Very clearly. So what am I doing? What can I do to achieve what I want? First, I have to purify this negative karma that gave me this seed to ripen. Second thing I have to do is plan. How am I going to get what I want? You determine somebody that you're going to work with. So when you plant a seed, when you plant a positive seed to switch up a karma, to manipulate your reality, you always have to work with someone else. You can't work with yourself, see? That's that grasping to yourself thing that Roger was talking about, right? That kind of thing doesn't work out. So you determine who you're going to help that you know in your world that either has a similar problem or wants a similar thing. Somebody who's trying to avoid a similar problem or wants a similar thing to you. And you go and you try to work with them. So you might, for example, you might do things like make very, very sure that you respect the relationships of other people. But if you have a girlfriend and she's kind of a flirt, like a harmless flirt, but she's a flirt, or something like that, right? You might go and find a very, very sweet way to suggest to her that maybe the effect that that's having is not what she's thinking. Maybe she thinks it's really harmless, but maybe you can see in her boyfriend or her partner's eyes that it's not so harmless from his side, And maybe you can find a sweet way to help her, to see that in his eyes herself, or something like that. See, this is what Sherry was teaching, so I'm not going to go into any kind of big length here because she can tell you all about it. The third step is so the second step is you make a plan. The third step is you actually go and you carry out the plan. So you go see your girlfriend and you discuss it with her. You tell her about this thing, the seeds, and how it might look. And you can give her examples from your own life and stuff like that, like why you're doing this in the first place, right? The fourth thing is really the most important thing of all, and that is to consciously replay what you have done. You consciously replay in your mind what you've done, similar to what Roger was doing in the meditation. You go back and you think, I went to see Annabelle and I told her about how, Peter's eyes look when she does that thing that she does, at parties. And I said to her, Annabelle, you know what? I don't know, like I kind of saw Peter having this thing, when you were doing this and that. And you will be so clear with her that she will be able to hear you and understand you. And you need to go back in time and remember what she looked like when you said those words to her. You need to go and replay it very, very exactly as though it was happening all over again and you were watching a video of it. And then you need to own this thing you did and you say, I did it. I reached into my reality and I shifted it, you know? Like, what's his name? What's his name? Neo. You guys know who Neo is at the end of, what's it called?
Matrix.
The Matrix. Neo, you know, in the Matrix, where at the very end he reaches in and he shifts and then all the bullets just like bounce off him. Like that. So, but it has to be very conscious and very purposeful and very intentional. That's the trick. Number 4 is the key. Number 4 is the key, okay? So, that's how we garden. That's how we plant specific seeds to create the reality that we want in our world. And what kind of reality do we really want, you know? And that's really the topic of the next 4th principle. You know, the 4th principle says, find a higher kind of love. It's from a text called Dalam, Following the Path of Bliss from Tibet. So now go back and think carefully about all the problems that come to you when you look out only for yourself, and about all the good things that happen when you look out for others as well. Treat others as you treat yourself. Devote yourself to the practice of putting yourself in the other person's shoes. Learn to look at people and think of them as if they were your own child, your only child. With this strong thought in mind, look at the world. Look at the world. See how little happiness is there. Pray then that all the people in this world could be happy. Decide that you will make them happy. This is what we call love. And so this 4th principle has very much to do with step number 1, where you ask yourself, what do I want, you know? Like, what do I want? And it's definitely wise to think that you want a faithful partner and that you don't want them to do these kinds of things, you know? And it's wise to approach it that way. But can we take whatever we think we want and really move to the end of it? Like move to the ripple, to the end of the ripple that reason makes, you know? Can we really get into that question? What do I want, you know, and why? What do I want now with this perfectly faithful partner that doesn't flirt? Like what? Then I'm going to go to parties with him and he's just going to like sit here and like look at me only or something. Then will I be happy? Maybe. But you know what I'm saying? Like, maybe not, you know? Maybe I will and maybe I won't, right? So, what is it that we really want, you know? What is it that we really want? Because that's what you've got to give away. And the partner is a good place to start, right? And you know, we all want to be happy, and we all want to stay happy, and we all want to be loved, and we all want to be cherished, and we all want to be respected. You know, these are generally the things that we want in our relationship. And those are beautiful, sweet, noble things that we can start to get by applying those 4 steps of karma. And then what, right? So I'm just challenging you to think a little bit deeper about what you want and how the practice of a partner can really bring us ultimately to an extraordinary spiritual place. And the practices that we do in all our practices, the meditation practices and yoga practice, asana practice, pranayama practice, the practice of the mudras, which is the practice of partner. You know, all of those practices are designed to bring our prana and concentrate it into the central channel And this is why it's very important for you to go home and practice the Muladhara chakra, because that's the Triveni, right? That's one of the gates where you can get the prana in to the central channel. So it's very critical that you can pinpoint it. You've got to be able to pinpoint it. And experience yourself drawing energy upwards at that chakra. So it's not, I'm not just like giving you some kind of random weird thing to do at the beginning of these things. It's a very important thing. It's a very important thing. And it has to do with finding a higher kind of love through partner practice. It has to do with that. It has to do with you and your partner understanding why it is that, being together and having reached in and created this reality where your partner is, apparently everything that you want. And so now, somehow, you each get each other to a place where nobody's worried about themselves anymore. Right? And so then you can pay attention to the rest of the world. And this would be very sweet, this would be very beautiful. To share your life with one other person and perfect this practice of kindness, and giving them everything. And perfect the practice of patience, all the 6 perfections with just one other person, so that you are in a state of availability, what Roger was fantasizing about in the meditation. He was fantasizing about it, right? And that's what that is. Yeah. Okay, so we have to be done. Okay, we have to be done. But read them first.
Last verse, and then we're done. Anyone who really wants to quickly reach some shelter for themselves and every other being must exchange themselves and others, must carry out the very highest of every secret practice. So the highest secret practice, here it comes. One word. This is the complete summary of all of the highest secret practices in one word. Kindness. That's it. Just be kind. Just be kind to yourself and just be kind to everyone around you. Just simple little random acts of kindness. And not even random, planned acts of kindness too, and then everything will come together. That's the underlying energy or foundation of goodness that will put you on an upward momentum or a spiral or a vortex coming up here and out there and everywhere. Is just, just being kind to people. Okay? We're so selfish. We are so unbelievably selfish. Just get out of our own heads for a second. If we can do that and do something for somebody else who really is in a less privileged position than we are, then that will create the foundation or the platform upon which all of these practices will then flower. Okay, it would be very difficult to do that and have great success if you can't manage that and try to get out of your own case and help somebody in need. Okay, so that's all.
And what a relief that would be.
That's all.
Supreme relief.
9:27, 3 minutes early.
Yeah.
Sorry there was no break.
Sorry there was no break.
The break failed and so did the bake sale. Thank you for coming.